The week started. The Chiefs are facing the Broncos, but it's not going to look like your regular Chiefs team. Who's in? What does it look like coming up next on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make another Locked On show your next one, because we are free and available all the time, everywhere, on every channel, for every team, all the time. We appreciate you being here. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell, do the things. Also, make sure, if you want all the latest breaking stuff, get on the text line at 816-357-8781. It's where our locos hang out. The locos are the Locked On Chiefs supporters. They're here every single day. We do this for you guys, and we couldn't do it without you. So thanks for joining us. Make sure you get signed up if you want in. We're going to go through quite a bit of what this game is now going to look like after we got an update from Andy Reid and a couple of reports out there. This is Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. You can find him for all your quarterback needs, all your cap analysis. We're going to get heavy into that as soon as this Super Bowl is over. And I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where we do the athletic matrix, as well as NFL 33 and RGRfootball.com. Check out those. I'm excited about this. We're gonna play our favorite in and out game for take a chance on somebody that could get elevated and get a chance in this ball game. That's coming up later in the show. We will also get to what are the injury return possibilities, because the little light was shed. Should have some people very, very excited and confirmed. What does that look like? Coming up in a little bit, but we start specifically for the Broncos, not really beyond that, just for this week. Who's in, who's out, what makes the difference? The reports are out. Carson Wentz is expected to start for this team against the Broncos. Chris Oladokun is expected to be elevated. That is one elevation for one game. That ties some of the knots, but that's kind of what we were expecting, right? I don't have any problem with that, and I like the concept of it. Maybe Chris gets some snaps as well.
Yeah, and I would be okay with that as well. I think that this is exactly what they needed to do. Patrick Mahomes doesn't need to be active for this game. He doesn't need to have a chance of being active for this game. I guess technically speaking, he could be the emergency third quarterback, but I still wouldn't go that far if it came to it. So we'll see how that goes. But to me, this makes the most sense. And when we start looking at other guys that they could bring up, there's lots of different guys that they could go. And really what it's going to come down to is what's the injury report look like this week, because there were some injuries from the previous weeks. Is there anything new that we don't know about or that we didn't know about that is going to play into somebody playing or not playing?
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right. I think that's all part of the process and somebody that we're going to have to look at. But specifically for running this offense, no matter who's going to be on there, and I don't expect Hollywood. Reports are that Travis won't play either. We already knew that, right? Travis might be the single person on here that isn't on the injury list that needs the rest the most on this roster. So we knew that was coming. Whether we see who in what role, does Noah line up in line? Do you get Hendershot out there a little bit more? Is it Frisker, Berkshire? There's a lot there. But for the wide receivers, the guys that catch passes from Carson Wentz, I think that's important. And I'm excited for no one more than if Carson's going to be under center, and we'll find out who the center is. No report on that yet. The guy I'm most excited about is Nico Romeo, because I think he's got an opportunity here to say, I can do more. I've matured. I'm ready to play on the field on offense, not just the kick game. Like, I think he's the guy that might be poised to have the biggest possibility for a jump.
Yeah, definitely could. And I'm going to be curious to see what they do with him, because when you look at this roster and when you look at where it is, he is going to be the kick returner unless McCole Hardman comes back. And quite honestly, with as well as he's been returning kicks, do you change that at this point? Maybe you bring McCole Hardman back. Maybe you wait an extra week or two to bring McCole Hardman back in if you think that he's going to add something. But Nico has been great at kick returns. Yeah, he almost fumbled or he lost the ball, and obviously that's something you don't want. But he's been very solid as a kick returner, and I think that that's something to take into consideration. And the other reality is can he step in and can he run the offense? Because this week he's going to have the opportunity to step in and run the offense, and you would think he's going to be a starter, because I don't think you're putting Justin Watson out there as a starter. He may come in and help, but he's a veteran. He doesn't need to be out there if you can help it. So give the young guys as much opportunity as you can. And this is a position that I would not be surprised if they use it as one of their call-ups.
Yeah, it certainly could be. And it would
as
make
their
a
other
lot of
call-up, I
sense.
guess. Sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. I'm torn because at the position, I want to see Tyquan Thornton just because I'm really intrigued. I think there's upside there, and it really takes not that Carson Wentz is an approximation of Patrick Mahomes, but it really takes a different level, a different kind of quarterback than he's played with in the years. So I really do want to see what that might look like, especially against a defense that is right up there with the best of them in the league. That this will be, I think, a great crucible for if you're a guy that gets on the field that normally doesn't, especially if you're on the offensive side of the ball, you're going to get right into the thick of it. And we're going to know, this is an evaluation point, like hard line in the sand as to how you perform this week against the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, and do you belong on an NFL roster is really what this is going to come down to. Like, this is going to be a great position to be in. And one of the things that we didn't talk about, or one of the things we talked about on yesterday's show, was that the Broncos could know whether or not the Bengals have lost by the time they play. Problem with that is Miami also plays at 4:30 or at 3:30, and it does matter. So it doesn't necessarily matter. They came out with the scenarios. If Miami wins and Denver loses, Miami's in the playoffs and Denver's at home. So they have to win this game. So it's going to be a situation where they have to play everybody, and this is going to give you a great barometer of where your roster is, where your backups are against I'm not going to say a great roster, but a good roster.
Mm-hmm. I will say this, like for the Denver Broncos, it's all go. They got to win unless they find out that both the Dolphins and the Bengals lost.
Well, the Bengals, the Dolphins play at the same time, so they won't know.
Oh, I thought they were both early. Okay, my fault.
Nope.
That said, for the Broncos, it really doesn't make any difference. They got to go. They got to get their part done, and I think that will lead to what is a team that has a little bit of an edge, especially if they feel like, hey, we know we're getting some backups. We know we're not going to face Mahomes and Kelce. I think that does give them a little bit of lift. So how do they treat that and how do they work with that? That's going to be the big question. But that's just the start. That's just this week, and we know that it can't change the Chiefs seeding. But there are some things that can change what happens after that, after the rest and after they get back on the field. Some injury returns are possible. We're going to talk about them coming up next. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? They definitely happened to me, and they helped a lot. There's a few subscriptions I didn't even realize I was still paying for. Rocket Money made it easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant on your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you cancel the unwanted subscriptions, monitoring your spending, and helps you lower your bills and everything that you're spending to grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, helps you, whether it's your subscriptions, your spending habits, or your goals that you want for this year. Rocket Money has 5 million users, and they've saved over 500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they're using the app's premium services. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions right now and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Before we get into this topic of conversation, make sure you check out KC Chiefs Corner and RGR Football and NFL 33. For me, it's sitting here talking about, hey, who's playing first, whatever. I had it in my head that they were both going to be early and be determined. That's how far we've gotten into this season that I'm messing up schedules because it's week 18 already. And it doesn't – it felt like we waited forever to get to camp, and then it's just been a blur to this point. And maybe it's all the high-tension games. Maybe it's the fact that, like, a lot of people are doubting this team this year. Maybe more so than any other time under Andy Reid. But this season's gone faster for me than anything that I can remember.
I think that's a stretch saying that they're getting doubted more than they were doubted last year. I think they were doubted way more last year than they are being doubted this year. I get it to an extent this year compared to last year. The offense hasn't looked good, but the offense didn't look good last year either. And they haven't, and they're 15-1. Like maybe it hasn't been pretty, but they've at least shown signs that they're getting better, and they're getting better right now. Like, who cares if the likelihood, and I know we'll talk about this on Friday, the likelihood is they're going to be 15-2. That's the likelihood of this scenario. The players aren't going to go in, the coaches aren't going to go in, and they're not going to try to lose this game, but that's the likelihood. You take all your starters out, you should be losing this game. I mean, that's just the reality of the NFL. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really matter at this point. It's a matter of getting ready for the playoffs. It's a matter of getting all your players as ready as they can be for the playoffs. And it's making sure that you have everybody on the same page and that they're as up to speed as they possibly can be when you have to face whoever you're going to be playing in 2 weeks. And that's really what it comes down to. So for me, yeah, in the whole week 18 thing is always weird because you never know when the teams are going to play until they release the playoff schedule because they want to make it as perfect as they can. And I could have told you 2 weeks ago I thought that the game on Sunday night was going to be in Detroit and Minnesota, and that's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
and
it should be.
Right, it should be. So now you're sitting here looking for what does Denver have? Well, if they're playing at the same time as Miami, they're going to be going all out. This is a great barometer for the rest of the team. And I would like to see some guys return from injury, but I also understand if the Chiefs look at it and say, yeah, maybe not.
There is a certain possibility there. And this should be the biggest profile game should be in on it. And I think it's a great Sunday night football game, especially when you think about, unlike in the AFC, where the Chiefs have it showing up, this ball game could affect everything in the NFC side, from number 1 down to 5, down to a couple of other ripples as well. So it is, again, reinforcing that, hey, congratulations, you got things sorted out and you don't have to be playing this game this late into this season that has gone by faster than I thought it would. It hasn't gone by as fast as I think some players would like it. Andy Reid was asked directly by our pal Matt Derrick, who's going to be on the show with us tomorrow. Make sure you get subbed and don't miss that. He was asked directly about the injury returns, rumors swirling, et cetera, specifically about some of the wide receivers and one guy in particular. It does not look, according to Andy Reid, that there is much likelihood. I mean, never say never, but he said it is not in the cards for Rashee Rice or Sky Moore to return to this roster this season in time for the Super Bowl. Okay. Not big surprise in either way for me.
I will say I don't think Sky Moore is really an injury issue, but I could be wrong on that.
Whatever it is, he ain't coming back from IR.
That's exactly what my point is. I think that this is a situation where they like what they have a wide receiver, and they're going to roll with that. Now, if there's an injury that happens, maybe that changes, but we'll see. You'd have to have a couple injuries, and obviously we hope that doesn't happen. So, Rashee Rice isn't a surprise. I'm kind of surprised that people are still asking about it because it seemed pretty clear at the time. But, I would think that getting into this game and Carson Wentz being in this game and playing with some of the guys that he's going to be playing with, this should give you a pretty decent idea as to what you have at the wide receiver position at the young guy level, because really you're talking about bringing in maybe bringing up Tyquan Thornton, who's a guy that obviously is here from the Patriots and on the practice squad. But you're also talking about Nico Romeo, like we talked about in the first segment. If he can step in and do something like as a wide receiver, maybe he's a guy that can be your 5th or 6th wide receiver next year and be your core special teams guy and at least give you that depth at wide receiver. Because right now I don't think they feel like he can be there. Yeah. But this is also a situation where I don't think you see a lot of Juju Smith-Schuster, which I think they've been basically putting him back. And Juju is basically wide receiver 4 or 5 right now, depending on how you look at it. This is tough. That's a position where you're looking at D-Hop, you look Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy. Do you really want any? I mean, you don't want any of those guys out there. So
Justin Watson, he's been very useful. He's been very efficient with his receptions this season. I don't think you want to push him too hard. They've been babying Juju. I completely agree. Like, they have not been exposing him to a lot of hits, not a lot of targets. I think that's all part of the plan as well. So yes, I think that's a smart way to do it is let the youth get in there, because you don't want to get any injuries, but you also, there's a scenario, maybe only in my head, where you get these guys back. Hollywood on a 1-year, D-Hop on a 1-year. You get Rashee Rice back in some way, shape, or form. We'll see what happens off the field. But if you put those 3 and Xavier on one field, I mean, this offense is back to where it was with Tyreek Hill, where you're running 4 verts at least twice a drive because you have all that talent at wide receiver. And that changes everything. So you can't afford, not just for this three-peat run, to have a significant injury in that group, but for the future as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that I know we need to talk about this Broncos game, but I think the other side of that is you also need to consider that I don't think that the Chiefs are going to be done at the wide receiver position. I think Brett Veach is going to look at it and he's going to add a wideout every year in the top 3 rounds. I honestly think that he is going to be focusing on trying to get a wideout in the top 3 rounds, because the reality is you can't really pay him. Like, you have to choose. Are you going to pay, a defensive tackle like Chris Jones, or a defensive end, or a corner? I mean, Trent McDuffie and Karl Loftus, all those are going to play into who you're able to pay. So are you going to be able to pay Rashee Rice in a couple of years? That's why I think that they're going to continue to go wide receiver. And when you start talking wide receiver and Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, you can easily do a deal that would be not likely to be earned.
Yeah.
And keep it cheap for next year. D-Hop's a little bit different, but you could still do things. So it's a question of do they want to chase another ring? Because I think they're going to be chasing one this year and have a great chance of getting their own this year.
I agree. I think an offensive lineman is in every draft going forward as well, because you got to continue to replace them. You are looking at a world right now where there's a possibility that you have 2 of the top 5 paid guards in the league, as well as the top paid center in the league. These are all possibilities. I don't think it works out that way myself, but it is a possibility. And so you have to continue to replenish that with young contracts, rookie contracts that you think that you can develop. There's just no way to pay everybody on an offensive line.
I would bet money that Joe Thuney restructures or does some kind of extension and his number comes down. I think he wants to be here.
I definitely agree. Let's hope that that's the way that it works out. But they're, unlike taking a chance on Joe, which, remember, Joe didn't even go to camp. I mean, that's just an amazing point. We'll run that down after the season about what some of the more amazing parts of this that we didn't have time to discuss in depth is the fact that Joe was not even close to 100% when camp opened this year. But there are other chances to take, mostly on who we'd like to see on the field. Who are the elevations that we are in or out on? That's coming up next. This is one of my favorite subjects, and we just get to keep twisting how we do in and out every week. This was your baby, your original idea. So where do you want to start?
I'll go with yours. I'm going to steal yours. Tyquan Thornton, in or out? I know you're in, but I guess I want to say, because I haven't really specified, I'm in. I think that would be a great elevation. I think one of the reasons it would be a great elevation is because you don't know what you have in this offense. You want to see, really what it comes down to for me is, can he pick it up? Has he picked it up? He's been here long enough to at least have an idea. Has he picked it up? That's what's important to me.
It's absolutely important. And I know a lot of you out there listening right now are screaming into the nothingness. What about Justin Ross? Because yes, they would both have to be an elevation. Unfortunately, we know what Justin Ross is capable of in this offense. And we know that it isn't enough to be on the roster right now. So the question mark in Thornton, I think, is more important to address and get an answer on. So I'm 100% with you. Let me throw out my favorite one right now and see what you think, because I think you've been kind in not, letting me go overboard. There are a number of dudes that I really, really do like on the practice squad. Fabian Lovett's there. You know that I like him. They don't
make a ton of sense too.
It would give you a look, right? But because Marlon's up, I can't really say go for it, right? So I personally would pass on that.
I'll play the opposite side for a second, and I will say the reason that I would consider it is because look at who you have there. You have Tershawn Wharton, who has played great this season. He's coming back off an injury. Obviously, it's a ways ago, but you still don't want to risk anything extra there because he's been great at times for you this season. Pennell's older. Derek Nye's been injured the entire season, so Chris Jones isn't going to play. You could make an argument to have a guy like Fabian Lovett come up and play defensive tackle for you. Like I argued earlier, Malik Herring should be a guy that gets some defensive tackle snaps. It would make sense to go at the defensive tackle position and bring somebody up from there.
I agree with you. The guy that
I think I know where they're going
as related to this, people forget, and I think it's gone under the radar. There's a guy in the practice squad that was once thought to be the best defensive tackle in his draft. Siaki Ika is just sitting on the practice squad with nothing to do as well. Marlon's already up there. If you want to have twin beef eaters in the middle at defensive tackle, bring up Ika and see what he can do. That's another possibility here that I would be in on just for the pure fundamental, what is he right now kind of thing.
You and your defensive line play. And that kind of surprises me because Fabian Lovett was your dude or still is your dude. I honestly think that this is going to come down to it's going to be a linebacker. I don't know if it's going to be Cole Christensen who's been up or it's going to be Swayze Bozeman. I think one of those guys is going to be the guy that's going to come up. Which one would you pick if you had to pick one of them?
Whew, that is a good one. The experience factor is all in Christensen's area, side of the court, whatever we're calling that. But the upside, the athleticism thing, knowing that you're probably doing this because Cam Jones is going to play some defensive snaps. So maybe he won't be on teams. Yeah. So that, I think the athleticism is in Swayze's court. So it is a rough pick for me. Haven't seen Swayze. So I would lean towards getting information. Bring up Bozeman. Let's see what he can do.
Yep. I think I'm with you on that one. He did get activated, but it was just for special teams. So I'm curious to see how he would look playing because obviously special teams and snaps in this game are going to be probably the same players, unfortunately, which obviously takes into account also the fact that special teams may not be what it normally is because you're having guys that are playing pretty much every single snap. Yeah. In or out, Nick Jones.
It says something to me that Nick Jones, who we thought might be a candidate for the nickel job a year ago, has been bypassed by the likes of Keith Taylor, a rookie UDFA and CRW. I don't know if there's a path for him to contribute in this game. And I probably would be out because I think the staff, at least, maybe not us on the outside, but the staff knows what they have in Nick Jones.
Yeah, I would agree with you. There's another couple of interesting players, Darius Rush and Eric Scott Jr. Both those guys are corners that are on the practice squad. I think that we talked about this in yesterday's show, but I'll say it again today. I think if they're going to bring up a corner, it's going to be Steven Nelson because get him snaps. Yeah. If they think there's any possibility that they're going to want him during the playoffs, get him snaps now because practice isn't the same as game speed.
Agreed.
And the playoffs is just going to be faster than what it is right now. So if you think there's any chance that he's going to be a guy that is going to come up and contribute during the playoff run, get him up on the active roster, have him start. Sit your starters as much as you can. Have him start. I know he's a veteran, but he needs to be ready to go.
He needs to get in there and mix it up. Play him. Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's certainly viable. If they don't feel they need that, if they feel that the next couple of weeks practice it is enough there, then probably the next one that I would be in on is Darius Rush because it's been kind of a up and down process for him getting into the league. I haven't seen enough to know where he's at for me either. Again, the staff probably does, but can he raise his gameplay if he gets onto the field? I'd be interested.
Here's one for you. Here's a fun one for you. We know what you have in Ferkser. He's played for Kansas City. They know what he can do. How about Robert Tonyan, who they just brought in?
Right,
It's awfully quick, but I mean they're going to have to. Do you want No Gray out there running routes on a regular basis? I don't think you do. You want to go 2 tight end sets because I think you're going to want to run the ball in this game. So I think you're going to go heavier than normal. So to me, I would bring up Tonyan and I would consider bringing up Tonyan and I'm probably out honestly on him because there's too many other guys that I would probably bring up ahead of him. But if it's between him and Ferkser, I'm probably going Tonyan because I want to see what he has.
That's fair. I am squarely in the Peyton Hendershot camp. I want him to get targets. I want him to get looks. So I would hold off on that because I want to see what happens if Noah starts and is the primary for the first quarter or whatever, and then you take him out and you let Hendershot be the Travis Kelce, the only tight end on the field for a while, go into 11 and see what he can do. Like, I'm very interested to see what that looks like because he practices with Carson every day. Tight ends are the quarterback's best friend. If there's a connection out there to be had, especially now that Washington has been released, I think it might be Hendershot to Wentz to Hendershot, and that's what I'm here to see.
I can understand that. I guess I'm just looking at it as I would rather have Noah Gray sit and really not play at all. And this gives you another tight end. But again, we're in a position where I really think Oladokun is obviously going to be called up. We already know that, but I really think the other one's going to be a linebacker, just because you start looking at special teams, you start looking at the linebacker position in general. I don't think you want Bolden or Tranquil playing at all. So I think Christensen's going to be the guy, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think you absolutely could be right. We're going to find out. We'll see what Matt thinks tomorrow, because he will be back with us over from Chiefs Digest, and he has the inside. He asked the best question in the presser for Andy Reid today, so we're going to get his inside, his reaction as well. Make sure you like, sub, and hit the bell, and get with us on the text line at 816-357-8781. Have a great evening. We're going to have a lot of fun. This is, I know, a strange week, but one that we're leading up to because it does have some ramifications, especially for the future and the rest. So thank you for your time and spending it with us today. Thanks for all the suggestions and all of your comments down there on the YouTube comments. We read them and we appreciate them. Thank you very much. Have a great night. We'll talk to you tomorrow.